Hi everyone, Ryan here from Fight Game Analysis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming fight between Jermell Charlo and Brian Castano. But before we jump into that, if you've been enjoying the content, please go ahead and click on the like button and also subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate your support. Alright, so we got a huge fight coming up here, 154 pounds, Jermell Charlo versus Brian Castano. And this is a fight to unify the belts. And the All Access coming up today's show, but Jermell Charlo mentioned how huge of a fight this is in the 4-belt era. The belts have never been unified at 154 pounds. So whoever wins this fight is coming home with all the belts. It's big in that way. Let's start off, talk a little bit about Brian Castano. Nobody really knows too much about this guy, right? He's coming into this fight for a unification belt because he has the WBO, but if it wasn't for that, he really hasn't been on anybody's radar up until this point. That being said, the man knows how to fight. Okay, he's a little bit undersized for the division, about 5'7", 67.5-inch reach. But it hasn't stopped him from going out and doing real work. He's got a serious amateur background, had over 180 wins, racked up wins against Errol Spence and Sergey Derevyanchenko. Now, I know it's the amateurs. Amateurs is not the same as the pros. Definitely getting a win over a guy in the amateur ranks isn't anywhere near the same as getting a win over a guy in the pros. But that being said, you look at Errol Spence, you look at Derevyanchenko, they only had a handful of losses in their entire amateur career. Like, they were really dominant. To go out and get a win over those men in the amateur ranks, you have to be skilled. To go out and get over 180 wins in the amateur ranks, man, you got to know what you're doing. So to put up those kind of numbers, then come over to the professional ranks, do what he's done, the man knows how to fight, right? He knows his business. So even though he's a little bit undersized for the division, he understands the technical aspects behind it. How to get in, how to use footwork. He's got fast hands, he's explosive, he's got good feet. He knows how to use upper body movement, knows how to counterpunch really well. One of the fights that I really liked looking at when I was handicapping for this, not necessarily because it was going to match up exactly the same style-wise, but because of the skill level that his opponent possessed, was when he fought Lara, Arslan Lara. Now you look at that fight, Lara is known for just been giving everybody trouble for a long time. And I'll be the first to admit that the version of Lara that Castano fought wasn't the same as the version of Lara that, say, Canelo fought, right? When you go back when he was younger. But he's always going to be tricky. He's always going to be highly skilled coming out of that Cuban school of boxing. And you look at what Castano did. He had a really good game plan. Comes in, applies a tremendous amount of pressure, but doesn't get caught reaching, doesn't get caught extending. Comes in, applies the pressure, smart, calculated, and then once he gets on the inside, really lets his hands go and does his work. Ended up working out great for him. Thought he should have got the win in that one. Now, you look at his two fights after that, Omatoso and Teixeira, exact same style. He's coming forward, he's applying heavy pressure. I mean, it's not reckless. It's not all lack of regard for his own safety, just coming forward, applying this ridiculous pressure. That's not always, it's calculated, but he's always there. He's not taking a step backward. He's not standing around and waiting. He's moving forward. He's getting into the space that he wants to be in so that he can do the work that he wants to do. Love his jab. He's got a really good jab, but he's not married to it. That's one of the things that I love about it too. He doesn't need it to get his rhythm going. He doesn't have to do his work behind it. He can come in and he can use the jab when he wants to, but he doesn't need it to get the rest of his stuff going. He can lead off of that aggression, but he can also counter. And he can counter you multiple ways. He can catch and shoot. He can move and shoot. Or he can punch with you. Not everybody can do everything like that. Castano is a good fighter. When you sit over there and you break down the film on him and you watch him, I was impressed. I didn't know too much about him until I started handicapping him for this fight. Then you turn around on the other side of the ring, you're going to have Jermell Charlo. Younger brother by like a minute of the Charlo brothers. Big for the division, right? A little bit over 6 foot, like a 73-inch reach. Strong. Hard puncher. Goes out there, gets a lot of knockouts, hits guys, hurts them. Can get it done early, can hurt them late. Love the way he fights behind the jab. Love the way he uses the straight punches. I'll tell you what, I've had some critiques of him in the past. One of the things that I didn't like was his low work rate. Still don't like the way that he loads up on every single shot. I think he can learn to fight a little bit better on the inside. I think he can learn to transition between offense and defense better. And I get it. I'm being a little bit nitpicky when I say these things, but I'm comparing him to people who are at, the top level. I think right now at 154 pounds, the division's a little bit weak. But if you look at the guys who are at 160, say like from a little bit back. We're talking about like a Bernard Hopkins or a Canelo now or a Triple G or something like that. Or we go down a little bit and talk about an Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford or Manny Pacquiao, and you compare his ability to fight on the inside or his counterpunching, to guys at that very, very top elite level. I don't think it's quite there. So I get the fact that this man is a world champion and he's out there and he's starching guys. But when I talk about ways that he can improve his game a little bit, I'm comparing it to the absolute elite level. So I think those are some areas that he can do, a little bit better work. But I'll tell you what, these last two fights, his second fight against Harrison, and then this last fight that he had, I really like the work that he did. I really like the fact that he picked up his work rate. That was one of the things that meant a lot. He was down at like 39 punches a round or something like that. It's hard. You got to go out there and throw every punch hard at that point. You got to hope you hurt guys. Both of those fights, he picked it up a lot. Particularly, you look at this last one against Rosario, he fought a different type of fight. He didn't have to come forward. He didn't have to apply the pressure all the time. He was fighting backing up. Now, it's funny. When we talk about guys fighting backing up, we typically think about them playing the counterpuncher. We think about them setting traps, using feints, drawing stuff out of guys, attacking them that way. Living off of the other man's aggression. But when Charlo was backing up, he was doing it differently. He wasn't coming back and playing the counterpuncher. He was backing up. When he was on defense, he was playing defense, using his feet well, a little bit of upper body movement here and there, catching shots. But he was still using his offense the same. For him to be at his best, when he's shining, he's got to be first. He gets off with that jab, follows behind it with the right hand. He's got a mean left hook that he uses that he hurts guys with. But he likes to be first. When he's first, when he's out there controlling the action from the sense of his offense, fighting when he wants to fight, not based off of the other guy's movement and being reactive, that's when he's at his best. That's when he shines. So the question is, what's it going to look like when these two step in the ring with each other on Saturday night? Man, let me tell you, styles make fights. And I really think this is going to be an interesting one. Because on the one hand, you've got a guy who I think does his best work at distance in Jermell Charlo. He fights long, keeps guys on the end of his punches, uses that jab and that long right hand. He does good work. But standing across from him is going to be Castano, a guy who loves to come forward, doesn't believe in taking a backward step, doesn't like standing in the middle of the ring, wants to get inside, knows how to get inside, use upper body movement, catch shots. So right there, that's a contrast to those two styles. It's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. A few fights ago, I said that I would have thought that Charlo would have been in some real trouble, but he showed me in this last one that he can back up and still do effective work. Now, you look at his fights with Harrison. Tony Harrison absolutely gave him the most trouble, even beat him. And the reason he was able to do that was because, Harrison was always in front of him, right? He wasn't a guy with a bunch of movement. He allowed Charlo to come forward. Harrison felt good coming backwards. And it was the little subtle movements on the inside, ability to create angles with the upper body movement and counter punch. That's what really gave Charlo trouble. He couldn't get his time. He couldn't get his rhythm. Had trouble with him the whole time. Missed a lot of shots. Now in the second fight, he eventually caught him with a really good one, got him out of there. But even in that fight, up until that point, he was having some issues. This fight with Castano won't be anything like that. That's not Castano's style. I think Castano is going to give him some trouble, but it's going to be in a different way. I think he's going to come forward and apply that pressure. I think he's got a really high work rate. It's going to be interesting to see how Charlo handles that. Is he going to back up and allow his back to get up against the ropes, and he's going to cover up and go into defense and then try to explode into his offense? That's going to be trouble. That's going to be trouble for him because Castano's got good upper body movement. He knows how to counter. So if you let him push you backwards, get off his shots, then come forward, or then try and get your shots off, he's going to be able to slip out of the way and counter that. This is going to be, I believe it's going to be a real test of Charlo's skills to see how he's going to be able to handle that pressure and that work rate. Is he going to be able to transition between the offense and the defense better to be able to get his shots off? Is he going to be able to not get trapped? Not let Castano cut off the ring, circle out, work behind that jab. Keep that work rate up so that you don't get smothered. Keep Castano on the end of your shots. If he does all those things, man, it's going to be a hell of a fight. I'll tell you that much. This is going to be a good one. Charlo's definitely got the power advantage in this one. So it's always an advantage to have that power. You can keep a man honest, keep him from wanting to come in so recklessly when he knows that you can drop that hammer on him at any given time. So All that being said, I'm going with Jermell Charlo in this one. I think he's going to find a way to pull it out. And when he does, I really think it's going to be a growing opportunity for him. This is going to be one of those fights where Castano isn't the biggest name, but I think when it's all said and done and we look back, I think he's going to be able to test Charlo. I think he's going to be able to bring some skills out of him. I think he's going to be able to win a good amount of rounds. And he's going to make Charlo dig down, make him show up late in those late championship rounds to pull out the victory. So let me know what you guys think.